applause for McCloskey and Nicole Quinn.
Hey everyone. Okay, I'm very excited to be here today speaking with Melody McCloskey from StyleSeat, the founder and CEO. Now, for those of you in the audience who do not yet know StyleSeat, they are a SaaS-enabled marketplace in the beauty arena. And so think of them as open table for salons and barbers. And what's really exciting is that I believe 70 million appointments have gone through StyleSeat, totaling $3.5 billion in revenue through that. And so I'm very excited to be here today. And before we kind of start with a little bit more about StyleSeat and the challenges and great things that have also gone on in the company, what I thought would be helpful to you guys in the audience is to really think about like the traits, the personality traits that like are innate in all of you in thinking about what is a founder. So with that, I'd love to ask Melody some of the things, like if you think back to your childhood, if you think back to your working career before you founded StyleSeat, what were some of the things that you think kind of made you who you are today?
I never really knew what I wanted to do, right? Like I wasn't one of those people who knew from day one that I wanted to start a company and it was so clear I was an engineer and that was just what my future was going to be. It wasn't any of those things. I always loved technology, so I was like a big gamer growing up and was using Prodigy, which you guys have never heard of because you're too young. So I was like always active online, but never thought that I could make that into a career because I wasn't a developer. So it was like, okay, well, what could I do? I was a French major and a political science major, so not technical in any way. But I guess I've always been really scrappy. Like we were talking about this before, like my very first job was when I was in, or like my first thing that I did to make money was like, I bought these little boots from like the Salvation Army, these little rubber boots, and I went trolling in the creek like a little weirdo along a golf course by my house and would get golf balls out of the creek and like shine them up and then sell them to the golfers like halfway through the course. Because I was like, you know, I'm too young to really make any money, but here's something silly that I could do that I have the time, right, to go make $1 per golf ball or whatever. And I've always kind of had like a side hustle or a couple side hustles because that was like fun and enjoyable, but I didn't really know that you could do those types of things and make a career out of it. That's kind of what a startup is. It's like a main hustle, I guess, where you're kind of figuring things out as you go and you're trying to think of some sort of arbitrage or a creative way that you could make money in this world or do something fun and interesting or make a difference for people.
I think a hustler is, like, you just hit the nail on the head then. We like to think about founders as very much like people who can like run through walls to get things done. And everything I've ever heard and seen from you is like somebody who runs through walls to get things done.
Yeah. There's other words. I was talking to, this is not good to say, I was talking to my COO the other day and talking about some other topic. And she's like, how do you describe like how, you know, being a founder, you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down, great things happen, and then you're down here and horrible things happen, and it's just constantly like this. And that's sort of been, you know, StyleSeat is almost 7 years old, so that's been the journey. It's the journey for many companies. And I was like, a cockroach? Like, how would you describe that? Like, you can't, like, entrepreneurs are so weird and crazy, you cannot get rid of them. Like, they'll pop out of the corners, they'll run under the rug and like pop out the other side. And I think you just have to be really scrappy and creative and not be afraid of extremely hard work and kind of failing forever until you don't fail.
I always call that the roller coaster. My father was an entrepreneur and I literally feel like my entire upbringing was a roller coaster of like, now we're doing well, now we're bankrupt again.
Well, it's like, oh wait, okay, how many people are students? Okay, how many people are working humans? Okay, so it's like 50-50. All those feelings that you feel like when you're in school or university and you're like, oh, this class, like I have a really great, I don't know, lecture or whatever they're called, and then the test, and then I'm studying, or like I love it, and then it's so much work. You have these periods up and downs of like stress. That's how real life is too, which is probably, you always are hoping like, oh, it's gonna get smoother, it's gonna get easier. It's just the ups and downs, like maybe get bigger, or you get better at not worrying about the ups and downs. I think that's just the difference. There's still more and more and more, but you learn to kind of just roll with it and not be very stressed about it anymore. You just drive solutions.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And actually something that maybe the audience might like to hear is like your advice in terms of what do you think makes a successful founder?
I think resiliency is the number one quality. And it's funny because when I first started my company, we've raised a good amount of money now, but like we bootstrapped for the first year and a half, and we sort of raised a couple little bites before we, we're post Series B now, we've raised $40 million. But I remember seeing other people that would raise a bunch of money and they'd do it faster than me, or they'd raise more than me, or they'd go to launch sooner than me. And I would like really beat myself up and say, what am I doing wrong? Everyone else is so much more qualified, and I'm just internally, working 7 days a week trying to get this thing off the ground. I'm messing up, or I'm not good at this. And if you stick around long enough, there are those companies, and then they go away. And there's big press releases when they launch and when they raise, and there's no big press releases when they go away. And you sort of learn that, and that happens like over time. You start to see it, and like the longer I've been around, the more I've started to see that, and the more I've realized, okay, just because they do these big banner things, that does not make them great companies. And there have been periods when we've done a lot of press, and there have been periods when we've been quiet and we've been heads down, figuring things out. And I think the consistency for me is just constantly being creative, constantly driving solutions, not being knocked down, and kind of getting used to getting knocked down all the time. And then you slowly turn around and you're like, whoa, we're still here and we're making a bunch of money, and okay, this feels good. I realize that my problems now are so different than our problems before. We're powering millions of appointments a month now, like that's bananas. So you don't realize that in the day-to-day, and then later you look back and you're like, oh, okay, perspective, got it.
Yeah, that's a great one. And if anybody has any other questions in this area, then you can submit your questions. They come straight up to me on the iPad, and then otherwise we're going to do some Q&A at the end. So if there's any other specific advice areas you want to ask Melody, then we'll do that at the end. So now I'd love to kind of take a step right into StyleSeat. So maybe if we can start with your vision and how you decided to start it in the first place.
My vision, I'm a visionary. Wait, how many people want to start a company? That's okay, but it's not everyone. Some people are just interested in being smart about business. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Maybe they'll want to start a company after this talk.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll ask you the same question at the end.
When I started StyleSeat in 2011, the big trends were consumer. So there were lots of apps for checking in, and apps for poking, and apps for so many, I didn't understand them at all. Like, I use technology all day long, but I don't get technology that feels stupid. And it seemed like there was this whole culture of hanging out on the internet, and that was less important to me than actually making a difference in the real world. So I wanted to do some sort of business that helped small businesses. That was something that I was really passionate about. My dad, he was a police officer, but he had a rock climbing company, e-commerce company. They actually got shut down by one of the big companies today because they're, anyways, he was doing really well, but it was like this side hustle, and he was so passionate about it. He's a big rock climber. And I thought that was so cool that he did that. And so I wanted to help other people like that. So I talked to a bunch of hairstylists, salon owners, barbers, real people. We're talking about real America, mostly in the South and the Midwest. people who are artists and who love their clients, they're deeply connected to their community, they love their community, don't have a deep passion for business fundamentals. And that was really exciting for me because I was like, technology, having a website, having online booking, having a payments system through your mobile phone can solve a lot of your core problems. These guys are taking cash and they're writing appointments down and then losing the post-it. Like, these problems can be solved and they can drive true meaning in their business. And then the other piece that I was excited about is community, is helping business owners connect to other business owners and get best practices and hear stories and feel that inspiration and feel like even though they're working for themselves, they're part of a team. And that was like so thrilling to me. So that's why we started the business. I did.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, you had this vision, then thinking about how you essentially got StyleSeat off the ground, and the worries that you had in those really early days.
Okay, so I was living in a closet in San Francisco, just off of Geary Street, just in a little bit of a rough neighborhood. I had moved to this place because I wanted to save money in San Francisco, if you can believe it, but I was paying like a couple $100 in rent because my room was like half the size of the stage, probably. I'm not kidding. And so I had like no overhead, and I had saved a little bit of money, and I bootstrapped the business for the first 18 months. So that means, actually, I asked a friend who's running a successful company, I'm like, how do you find your first developer? Like, I'm just a person. I'd been a PM for a while, I'd worked with software developers a bunch, but I was like, how do you find a developer? And he goes, I don't know, just write an ad on Craigslist. And I was like, okay. So I just like wrote a little ad. I'm looking for a developer who can build a prototype for me. I can write out the spec and everything. I will pay you no money and you'll get equity in the secret company that's stealth that I can't tell you about. And I got a bunch of responses, including one from this guy who was an engineer who had made many millions of dollars from Google. He was employee number like 400. And he had an airplane and a bunch of time, and he's like, sometimes I'm just gonna fly my plane, and sometimes I'll code for you. And I was like, this is perfect. Like, our first design I had created from a friend who I convinced to work for me for free by getting him super drunk and telling him I have a vision, I have a dream, be on this train with me. And he was like, okay. This is after like 6 beers. And then I'm like, I'm gonna need 10 hours of your time, consistently every week for the next 6 weeks. And he was like, oh my God. But he did the design for me. So it was like just scrappy, crazy, weird ways that kind of got the business up off the ground. We ended up launching at TechCrunch. And by that time we had 10,000 businesses that were using our product. And then we raised a seed, I think, shortly after.
See, this is amazing because I asked 3 founders this exact same question yesterday at Stanford Business School, and people were like, oh, well, I didn't really have any worries at the beginning because I just raised like a $4 million seed straight after finishing school. Those are not the founders I have the most respect for. The founders I have the respect for are ones that are like, I bootstrapped my business for the first 18 months. I got to 10,000 customers without raising a single dollar. Like, that's incredible. Like, if I think about Stitch Fix, like the little amount of money that they have raised to go all the way to potentially IPO is incredible. Like, that is
Katrina's a baller. Nothing can stop her. The founders that are the most interesting are the ones where they're like, this is what we're gonna do. Nothing can stop them. They're like freight trains. They're fun to be around, they're fun to party with, they're fun to know personally, they're like really good friends. Because they like make everything else go away, just the most essential, that's what we're gonna do. And like they're fun to work with because they get stuff done.
Freight trains, I like it. That's like my running through walls to get things done.
Yeah.
So listen, sometimes companies have to pivot. Sometimes companies have to change direction. So was that ever something that you thought about or had to do while at StyleSeat?
No, we've made every right decision always, constantly, since we've started.
She knows she's talking to a Brit, so she has to be sarcastic.
Yeah, well, I'd say I had like utopian visions of grandeur around our pricing model. where I didn't want to charge any of our businesses. So we're basically business tools, software, back office software for stylists and barbers to run their whole business. So we do scheduling, payments processing, online booking, all their follow-ups, thank yous, reminders, email marketing, blah, 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 lots of stuff. I wanted that to be free for our businesses, and I wanted to charge to fill their schedules to drive them more customers. And I knew that Living Social and Groupon had been charging 70% of the price in order to drive customers that were not high quality. I knew that through our directory we could drive high quality customers for a little less than that, but much higher ROI. So that was a huge opportunity. The average stylist is only booked 65% of the time. It's like billions in revenue opportunity. The challenge is, in order to do that, you have to think about, you have a bunch of customers that are using you for free. So we had hundreds of thousands of businesses that had signed up, and they all had the expectation that StyleSeat would drive them like 10 clients on the first day. And that's challenging and it's expensive. And I think I underestimated how challenging that would be. So we were kind of trying to figure that out and running a bunch of experiments, and we have achieved great scale. It was just harder to actually monetize. So we ended up charging a monthly fee of $35, and we went like this in revenue in just a couple months, and it's been really good. Making money's cool.
Well, so that's fascinating, because I feel like we live in the only bubble in the entire world where it's fine not to be profitable. In fact, it's fine not even to have any revenue for a very long time.
Okay, we were not revenue free, but revenue late for like 5 years. So we kind of fit into that. But we also allowed ourselves to do that. We were not spending a lot of money. So it wasn't as lame as it sounds.
But though, when you were at that point, how did you decide when to move from free to paid? And so how did you decide that that was the right point to do it?
Our growth was so much and so fast that it became crazy. Meaning there were so many customers on the supply side and like tens of millions of customers using us on the demand side that it was chaos, and the platform was about to break. You know, we weren't able to support that scale with the people that we had on the team. Right now we're a little less than 40. So it was basically like, all right, I need to scale up my team to like 200 people to be able to support this activity and build our business in a smart way, or I need to dramatically simplify and just start monetizing. And that was the hardest, scariest decision that I've ever made, because I was really scared. We were free, right? And then all of a sudden we were going to charge $35, which is top of the market for our industry. And I was literally like, all right, I might not have a business tomorrow. Like the night before we turned on monetization, I was like, I might not have a company tomorrow. That's how scared I was, because I had no idea. That didn't happen. It was actually fantastic, because the users that were sort of using us but semi-engaged went away, and it made our users that were important very clear to us. And so then we could invest in them and make the tool better for them, and we were able to sift through what was not important. And it has dramatically helped the business. Our product is 10 times better for it, our community is 10 times happier. So it was the best decision we've made, but it was really scary. Like I felt like I was risking the company.
So much of product changes is about how you're communicating that to your end user. So what was your messaging and communication over that key pivot?
It was a personal letter from me to, I wrote it like 5 times, to our community that basically said, look, just like you charge for your services, we have to charge for ours. We have invested millions of dollars into this platform, into this community, and by doing this, not only are we going to be able to be a sustainable business, but we're going to get 10 times better than we are now. So by doing this, you're sort of investing in us, and in exchange, we will get 10 times better for you. And you know, there were people that were pissed, because you're talking about small businesses that aren't making a lot of money, right? Our customers are making millions a year. So that was challenging for some of them, and it was really heartbreaking. But at the same time, you have to run a business. And the customers, you know, we double a small business's revenue we almost double their revenue in the first 15 months of being on the platform. So we pay for ourselves. But it's a risk that you have to take in us, and you have to onboard and use it. And we were lucky in that vast majority of the community stayed and is still with us.
So staying on the same theme of communicating, I heard you say quite a few times in the earlier statement, team. So how did you also communicate these changes to your team, and how did they react?
It's interesting because the people that were there for the free, giant, fast-growing platform were less excited, and many of them opted out. And the people that were there to really support the small business owner and were there to really drive value and do the hard work that is being a company that makes money stayed. And so that was really interesting. There was definitely a culture shift after that moment, because being the company that could be, the $1 billion company we'll see, I'm investing on a dream, sort of millennial, no offense to a lot of you guys, actually I'm a millennial too, but whatever. Sort of fleeting type of employee was less excited to work there, and we were not, that wasn't the value that we needed. We needed the people that were in it to in the long term to support our businesses. And we're excited about making money and wanted to be profitable and wanted to scale revenue, and that's it can be a different person.
Yeah. So on that topic of team, how did you think about building culture before that? How did you think about building it afterwards? And were there any differences?
Yeah, I think some of the early mistakes that I made, I hired a couple of people, key people at the company that came from really big companies, thinking I have to hire for where we're going to be in 2 years. And I want to hire an athlete that's seen the scale. And what I didn't realize is the type of person that works at a big company is very different than someone who works at an earlier stage company. So bigger company, they like the big salaries, they like the perks, they like a reliable day, they sort of know what they're gonna expect. They're doing more talking than working, and that's sort of the culture, right? That's how large companies are. And there's people smiling and nodding. Small company is shit goes like this every single day. You're up and then you're down. You gotta let someone go and then you make a hire. The product works and then it breaks and then, you got a bunch of customers and then something horrible happens and your revenue falls out the bottom. It's very chaotic, and you're a certain type of person that thrives in that bloody mess every day. And those are the types of people that you want, right? Deep thinkers, roll up their sleeves fast, self-directed. Okay, what do we need to do? Great, I'm gonna go do the deep research. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna present to you 3 different options, and I've thought through all 3 of them. I need those employees. And so we had to make some changes as I made that learning, and the company dramatically benefited from it. And now, everyone that's there now, I also hired a COO, which is fabulous. Do it. I waited too long. But that has also really helped because there's a culture of accountability and honesty. There's no secrets. Everyone knows how much money we make, how much money we spend, where it all goes, what's driving growth, what my concerns are. Because I talk about it all the time. We all talk about it in every meeting. I'm in almost every engineering meeting, almost every product meeting. So it's good. It feels good.
So I guess we've already discussed quite a few different challenges and how you dealt with them. But this is something that I do want to hammer home to the audience that, hey, starting a startup is not easy. So if I can dig a little bit deeper on this and ask you other challenges, other frustrations you have had, what have been the truly hardest things in building this business?
I think in the early stages, the emotional stuff. It is this is gonna sound dramatic, but I was living in my super sad room, my little apartment. I was eating beans from a can. I didn't have any money when I left my job and bootstrapped my business. I was spending $1,000 a month, which in San Francisco is not possible in any way. But I was I don't need to have a single drink with a friend this month. I was really to the bone because I wanted to start a company on my own and prove that I could do it and have that. I wanted to know that I could do it. But there are emotional tolls with that, right? Because you have everything on the line. I had no safety net. I had no plan B. And it meant that every meeting, if it went well or not well, it was my everything. It was devastating. And then it was so great. So like those up and downs are really hard. And when I started to pay myself a salary, like life got a lot easier. But you know, your company is your baby, and so when you get rejected by a VC, it's like they're rejecting you personally. And then you realize, oh, I'm going to be rejected 892 times a year, you know, forever, like as part of this job. All right, rejection doesn't bother me, you know, anymore, or whatever. But it takes a while to learn those lessons.
It's actually such a good point. Like when a VC is passing on a founder, it is definitely not passing on them personally. And it's actually so hard from the other side of the table because we have to pass on, you know, not 90% of companies, it's 99.9% of companies. And sometimes that's really hard. So maybe selfishly, I'm going to ask this question around VC funding. Tell me a little bit about like the C, the A, the B rounds, whichever you want to focus on now, and tell us a little bit about like the highs and the lows, without names, of the investors that you had to deal with.
She knows some of the real stories. I was very lucky because I learned how to raise money from someone who maybe single-handedly has raised more money than anyone else in the world, Travis. But I was very lucky in that, like, he and I were really good friends, and he coached me a lot because I was a super nerd. If I could live in Excel all day long, still to this day this is true, I'd just be so happy. Like if I never had to talk to another human, it would be the best day ever. As a CEO, that's not how it works.
And her husband is in the crowd, sorry. She loves Excel more than you.
Not quite true. But fundraising was really rough because I was like, if I just show them a bunch of data and if they see how, you know, we're processing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month and we've just bootstrapped, like this is so much more traction than half these other dudes that I see raising a ton of money. Like this is gonna be great. But what I realized is like when I put up my little spreadsheet and talking about the numbers and the opportunity and let's walk through the P&L, that doesn't really land well with anyone. And so I had to learn how to tell a story. Charlie's laughing at me because he's the best storyteller ever, and he's constantly trying to up my game. Thank you. But I had to learn how to speak with humans and non-engineers and non-technical people and sort of get them on board. So fundraising was really hard for me. I had friends and early advisors that helped me tremendously. And you know, in the beginning, you're betting on the founder and their story and their potential. And so your ability to pitch is very important. Later on, you're investing in numbers, right? And growth and sort of how it's performing, and it's less about you specifically. So those were interesting. I mean, fundraising sucks. No one likes it. It's never fun. I just had a girlfriend who was just talking to me. She just raised $200 million for her company. They've been profitable forever, and they're doing hundreds of millions of revenue. And she's like, it was the worst process I've ever been through, and I thought that it would be a walk in the park compared to previous raises that they've done. It's never easy, it just sucks.
Wow.
But as a VC, we love you, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do without you, so thank you.
There's some good ones out there. Guys, thank you for all the questions, by the way. I just looked down. Charlie, you have the opportunity to ask your wonderful wife a question if you want to text it in. Guys, so keep the questions coming in. I'm going to spend the last 15 minutes of this focused on Q&A, so any other questions, keep them coming in. We spent a lot of time talking about challenges. I want to shift gears now and just talk a little bit about the great things that have happened in the company. Whenever I see a deck from, or like a pitch from a founder the first time, I always think, how can you maximize the oh wow moments and minimize the drop moments? So I want to ask you, when were your oh wow moments in the business when you realized, like, I've got something really special here?
When we first were so I made a bunch of phone calls, maybe we were like 2 years into the company, and I was just calling random customers like a creeper and just asking them like how they liked using StyleSeat. And because we were thinking about charging, and I wanted to know what features they used and loved versus the ones that they didn't, so we could kind of think about the model. And I called this woman, and she was in Chicago, randomly dialed her up and said, hey, I'm the CEO of StyleSeat. My name is Melody. fabulous to meet you. I was, wondering if you could give me some advice about product. And she burst into tears. And I was not expecting this. Like, I was eating like an egg McMuffin, and drinking coffee and like sitting in a conference room, and I'm like shocked. And she said, I've been a hairstylist for 20 years, or for 10 years. For my entire career, I have had to have a second job as a paralegal assistant because I couldn't trust that I could support my family. I have 2 kids doing this job. And since I've gotten on StyleSeat, a year and a half ago, I quit my second job and I'm doing this now full time. And it's because of you. And she started crying. And it was like me realizing, I started the company for selfish reasons. I started the company because I wanted to have freedom myself, right? Like, I didn't come from money. My dad was a police officer. Like, that's not what we had. And I knew that I wanted to have a little more freedom in life. And that was kind of the impetus for doing it. And what I realized is, in talking to this woman, we tapped into something so important and real, and it became so much more important to me than that other thing. Like, it really gave me meaning and the company meaning. And I started calling customers a lot more, and we realized that we've tapped into something real, entrepreneurs doing what they love, being artists, being more successful. And I was completely blown away by that. And that became like my mission in life. So that was probably my biggest aha moment.
That's great to hear. We've focused so much on StyleSeat, but I also want to think a little bit about like a work-life balance, whether you even have one. I mean, we know you're married, so you must have some. But like, is it possible for entrepreneurs to have a work-life balance? Is it not all consuming?
There's something called the startup 20 that I just made up just now.
She just coined that phrase.
Which is, you start a company and I gained a bunch of weight because I was like, the outside world doesn't exist to me anymore. Like, I'm heads down, I'm gonna be doing this is all I care about. And like, I didn't have any friends for a while. Like, it was what I needed to do. It was the period that I had to go through to feel like I did as much as I could. I felt like this was my one shot, right? And so there was a period, and then like a couple of my friends were like, let's dial it back a little bit. And I was like, okay, I'll go to the gym now and eat healthy and like take care of myself again. But I'm kind of an obsessive person about my business. I love it, I live and breathe it. So there hasn't really been work-life balance. It's been all work. I would say my husband has helped me to have work-life balance because he also runs a company and he works his ass off and we only see each other a few hours a day. But I deeply enjoy that time and it makes me like really value it. And before it was like work is the only thing that like really brings me joy and like builds me up, and like now I have other things that also feed me in other ways, and so I think I have more balance than before. But we still like it's an intense work schedule. That's what you sign up for.
Did it ever get too intense? Like, did it ever get so hard to the point where you thought, you know what, I want to quit? That's it.
I've never wanted to quit because I'm really stubborn and because...
That's another trait the world founders.
I'm like, no, this is not going to get the better of me. Like, I get pissed. I get really pissed when there's a big problem. And I buckle down and like dramatically simplify and everything else goes away and solve the problem. But no, I've never wanted to quit. I love it. I love the hard stuff. You have to, in the beginning, the hard stuff is super intimidating and overwhelming and you can be paralyzed and it's hard to move forward. And then you just sort of learn that that's not going to go away. And then you start to really love hard problems. And it's like a boring day if you don't get a bunch of really hard problems or at least one crisis.
We have some awesome questions, by the way, and loads of them. Like, I'm like scrolling down, so great job, guys. So we're going to move on to some questions now. So I'm going to go down these so that the most efficient people who got their answers in first get rewarded for that. So the biggest lesson that you've learned over your entrepreneurial journey?
I never thought that I was like smart enough to start a company or run a company. And I did it. And like every time I would like have a meeting with someone and they would agree to work with me, I was like, I fooled them, right? Or like I would sign more customers and I'm like, I'm fooling them. You know, it was like this weird thing in my head. And I think what I've realized now as I look back, even though I didn't know what I was doing most of the time, no one knows what they're doing most of the time. Like you don't know how to do it until you do it. You don't know how to raise money until you raise money. You don't know how to turn on revenue and scale your team and hire executives and do all this stuff until you do it. And looking back, I'm like, oh, that wasn't a mistake. And I think that's been a big, it took like, 7 years, but now I look back and I realize that I thought I was so deficient and it turns out that's not the case.
This is a very efficient system. As I ask the questions, they disappear. This is a question I want to know the answer to. Has being a woman ever presented any obstacles in your career?
No, it's great for women in tech. Oh, is that a topic that we're talking about now? It's really challenging. So less than 3% of venture-backed companies have a woman founder, right? Less than 3% of partners in venture are women. So it's hard for both of us. I think...
I always think it's hard and it's an opportunity. Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. That's my running joke at the office. Every time someone comes and they're like, this is really horrible, this is really hard, I turn to them and I go, I smell opportunity. And I do it every single time on purpose to be annoying, to make them stop saying that to me, because I don't want to hear something's hard one more time. Because everything's fucking hard.
That's another trait of a good entrepreneur.
Look, we would have to go for drinks if you want to hear the real Scooby on how hard it is to be a woman. It is hard, but everything's hard. And you just do it. You just figure it out. I think what's really important is to build a group of people around you, like men and women, and especially women who are awesome, who are ballers, who get their shit done, who don't take any sass from anyone, and like surround yourself with those women and support them. Actually support them, actually care, like put yourself out there and they will do the same thing for you. It's just so important to have your people. And I have like men that I love that fight for me and give me great advice, and I have like a separate women group that's super important to me that we do the same thing for each other.
We spent a little bit of time earlier talking about team, but this question is specifically on how do you motivate your team? And for a lot of people in the audience who are thinking about being a founder themselves, any best practice leadership skills you can share with us?
Just be as honest as possible. Like, there are no secrets, there are no hidden numbers. We talk about everything. Everyone has full access to the database. They can see how we're performing, they can see revenue, they can see churn, they can see anything they want of the company. And I am very clear with everyone. I tell them we are in this to drive impact. We are in this to make money, and to make a lot of money. I don't want a small, cute company. I want a big, important, meaningful company that drives value. If you don't want to be here, if you don't want that, then you don't need to be here. And it allows me to, every time someone exhibits behavior that is not in line with that, I say this all the time, this is what we're about. If you're not on the train, you don't need to be here. But it means that people that really want that really want to be here. And that helps, that motivates them. Plus they see the numbers, right? They can see for themselves. And I just try and do my job of being as clear as possible, as honest as possible, as open as we can be, so that we continue to attract and motivate the people that are serving the mission that we're trying to support.
And just on that, there's a company that we invested in called Rothy's, which is this shoe company here that I'm wearing. And when they, in the early days when they got a new sale, it would ring, and it would like ring throughout the company, and then it started like just buzzing like every 2 seconds. Was there anything like that you did in terms of like big milestones to motivate people and show people like how great your traction was?
I mean, we would like ring a bell when we'd get a subscription, and then that got really annoying really fast. Not fast enough, but at some point it was like, this is stop the gong. We had an automated gong that was attached to our DB, so every time like a subscription would come in, it would go ding, like on its own. And we thought that we were brilliant geniuses for creating it, and then it was super annoying. We're like, put the gong in the garbage can.
This is a good question. If you, Melody, were to start StyleSeat again, what would you do differently?
Oh my God, all of it. Do differently. I mean, I would try and hire the people with the right DNA. Like I talked about that before, we've made missteps. I would know the knowledge that I have about the monetization strategy, so I'd do that. One big thing that I would do differently is I waited 18 months bootstrapped. That is a long time to bootstrap. I probably could have shaved like 9 months off of that, but I was too scared to do it because I was like not a people person. I was not ready to go out and like pitch to super scary, VCs who I thought were so brilliant and amazing, and like how could I possibly even like I had this mental block that was arbitrary. So I would have gotten over that sooner and raised money sooner, and we probably could have shortened our timeline.
I like this next question because my boyfriend helped start a meditation app, Calm, and makes me meditate every single day. Oh, yeah. I'm glad you guys like it. So the question is, you don't have to say meditation. What strategies have you used for lowering stress as a founder?
Dogs. We have 2 dogs. I love my dogs. I have a little Yorkie dog, and then when I married Charlie, I got a giant bulldog too. So we have both. That's huge. We walk them. A trainer, that's like my biggest luxury right now, is having a personal trainer. And it's just, he's the meanest, and he lies to me. He says, one more set. And that's really effed up. I don't like him that much, but it's good stress relief. I walk around the city a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't meditate. I'm sorry, I'm not cool enough.
Oh, interesting. The question is essentially saying, like, how did you start the company without technical experience? Did you partner with somebody who did have technical experience?
Craigslist. Well, I had been a PM, so I'd worked with software engineers for a while. Like, I understood the product process. I wrote all the specs and things for the company before we were built, so that wasn't new to me. I'll tell you that there's this whole like church of the software engineer, cult of the engineer, that everyone in Silicon Valley is like obsessed with engineers and they're magical and that's not true. They are regular people with a brilliant skill that is very quantifiable and awesome, and there's a methodology that you can use in order to build great software. What I realized when I like deeply learned about Scrum, I was like, oh, this is how like our marketing team has been working for a long time. Like, I guess what I want to say is, just because you're not technical does not mean you cannot build an awesome, amazing, badass company. You just have to learn how to not be fucked with when it comes to software. So I'm in every retro, I'm in every planning meeting, like I'm in it with the team, and they act like they don't, but they actually really like me being there. It's fun to be there, like, being hands-on with the product and the software, and it's something that can be learned. It's not something that's like this unattainable thing that you'll never be able to do.
Now this question kind of follows on from that, but from the point where you found your technical co-founder, or from the point of Craigslist, how long did it take you to build and launch StyleSeat?
That's a good question. So what we first built was client tracking app for stylists, because we found that through product research, the thing that everyone needed more than anything was a way to track their clients, their information, appointment history, formula history, if they're doing color. And so it started off as a very simple app. I pitched my beta group by getting a bunch of stylists together and saying free champagne cocktails for stylists in San Francisco, and got a bunch of people in a room. My mom made food. We brought plants from Costco, and I bought Prosecco, the little $5 bottles of Prosecco. I ripped all the labels off and put fancy wrappers around it so it seemed fancy. I got them all really drunk. And then I said, I have a dream for the beauty industry and the way it needs to change, and I'd love to pitch you my dream. Give me 10 minutes. And it was like, I told jokes, but I talked about what I wanted to do for them and how I thought they were unempowered and how I wanted to solve that. And by wooing them and whining and dining them, basically I got a bunch of stylists to deeply care about what we were doing. So that helped to build our first beta group, so that when we launched our app, we had kind of this built-in system. And I was like, any stylist you know that I'm crazy, but I deeply care about this, like please invite them. And we were able to grow, we launched in 18 months with 10,000 customers. So we launched the first version of the app in like 3 months, probably. It was very fast, but it was very ugly. It didn't do very much, but it allowed us to figure out product market fit.
And they say you should be embarrassed of your first product, so that's good.
I'm embarrassed of my current product, actually. We've got a long way to go. It's great, it works, it's making a lot of money, but like, come on.
Well, hold on to that.
Oh,
Because that's one of the questions in here. Okay, 2 of you are asking a quick question to me, which is what kind of companies am I most excited about right now, and what industries am I looking to invest in?
Is someone raising? Is anyone raising?
Yeah. We have, that's Chris. Leon. Leon and Chris, we invested in through Planet the Apps. So, yeah, it's exciting to have him in the room. So, I'm excited about e-commerce and marketplaces overall. Like, I invest in everything consumer. But to me, we're kind of at this crossroads between different platforms. So, we know that we're all using this, but what is the next platform? Is it AR, VR, drones, voice? What is it? It's a huge question mark. So many people are making half their fund invested in VR. I don't think that's the right strategy because we don't even know whether that's going to cross the chasm from gamers to mass. So what we do know is that people are buying stuff, and people are going to continue to buy stuff. So whether it's like people booking appointments through StyleSeat, or whether it's people buying jackets from a cool new brand, I just think that people are going to buy stuff whether it's on here, or whether it's on a VR device, or whether it's going to be like, Alexa, order me a pair of Rothy's size 7. So that to me is always going to be a trend. And so we are continuing to invest in great digitally native vertical brands, e-commerce retailers, marketplaces, and we're seeing great exits. I mean, from Jet to Dollar Shave Club to all these beauty companies, there are great exits in this space. And I spent like 10 years prior to Lightspeed doing public market investing, and I just think there's a lot of public market appetite for marketplaces, for example. So excited about that. And then very quickly, if I had to get excited about one new platform, it probably would be voice. I just think that if you think about us saying we're going to bring the entire world's population online, well, half the world's population is online. If we're bringing the other half on, we forget that a lot of them are illiterate. And so maybe this is not the best device to bring them online, whereas voice could be. So I think that has huge applications, and I'm excited about it. So that's that question. Back to Melody. Biggest challenge you face right now today at StyleSeat?
It was hiring, and then I hired 2 executives this week.
Congrats, big week.
Big week.
And they're awesome.
They're really awesome. They're really great. Big problem this week.
Can be last week, doesn't have to be this week.
That's fair. So hiring, it's probably hiring. It's always something different, right? Like now we need to hire engineers. If anyone is an engineer or knows engineers that want to work at a company, it's fucking awesome. Let them know. We are Python, Django, Angular, AWS. Goodness.
This is also why she's a good founder, because she's taking any and every opportunity to hire great people like yourselves. Okay, we have 3 more questions, which is kind of awesome in terms of the timing as well. Okay, so how did you get those first 10,000 customers right at the beginning?
It was all word of mouth. So we are actually still, to this day, entirely word of mouth. We have no marketing team. one of the hires that I have is a marketing person, so we're really excited about that. But that's essentially unheard of in tech. It's not normal. It's weird to not have to drive growth, to have all the growth sort of happen. But it started through that little group of 30 people that I like wined and dined and sort of told them my vision and my mission. And I asked all of them, just send this. I sent them an email and said, forward this to everyone you know, send it to them in a text message, whatever. Because I want to get as many stylists on this tool as possible. And because what we had built was so important, we were finding, so when I started the company, 20% of stylists were independent and 80% were employees at a salon, which meant that they pay that salon 60% of their revenue. They have to just do whatever work is on their calendar. They don't have any agency and they can't have a direct relationship with the customer. So I built a client tracking app where you could track your clients' phone numbers and emails. And it was something that you could slide over to your client across the chair and just say, add your information here. I want to send you specials, right? That was kind of the marketing jibe that I told them to say. And we found that they were able to build up their client book. And if they wanted, today, 70% of stylists are independent. So there's been this huge shift. So we have helped power that. We've helped these guys go and be independent and make twice as much money and control their destiny.
We have 3 likes on this question. So I'm glad that you guys kind of brought this up again. So let's talk a little bit more about the founder-investor relationship and what that dynamic was like. And before we went into today, Melody actually said to me, I want today to be real, really real. So let's get real.
I'm sick of these people that walk up here and they're like, God, running a company's a dream. It's been so easy from day one and I'm such a brilliant visionary. I felt like I saw so many of those growing up and starting my company and I was just like, it's only hard for me. And then what I realized is not actually true because now I know all those people and they're like, ugh, every day. And so that I feel this burning desire to talk about the realness because it, I think, serves everyone when we do that.
Yeah. You can't escape the question.
Wait, what's
founder, investor relationships and what's the dynamic like?
You have your sort of ride or die investors, and then you have the I like you until I don't investors. And your ride or dies are the ones that are like, what do you need? When do you need me? I'm here. And they're awesome. And they're almost non-existent. There's I'd say 5% of investors in the Valley are like that. And then you have the rest that are sort of you're hot and I back you until you hit a bump and then let me know when you fix it type of thing. And it's hard, it's impossible as you're fundraising to know the difference between the two because everyone acts like they're the best possible investor and they're so amazing, they're gonna help you and they love you and they whatever. And then you learn when it gets really hard who the good ones are, who the ride or dies are, and who the, let me know when you fix this people are. And I think it's really good to go through that process and have both because you know what good looks like and then you know what convenient looks like. And that's fine, right? Because in the beginning, I used to not understand that and be learning about that dynamic. And now I'm I know, I see you. Okay, I'll see you later. And then things are great. And then they're like, here I am helping you along the way. And I'm like, yep, I see you. Okay. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine. I think what you need to learn as an investor or as an entrepreneur is that you have to get your advice and your help and your support from other entrepreneurs, from people that are awesome, from the internet. I Google everything. I read 1 million blog posts a day because most of the problems that we have been solved by a lot of people before in a lot of different situations. I hire great employees and I have my ride or die investors, and then you just sort of learn how to do it. And not a lot of people say that. I think because entrepreneurs are scared to say you can have a challenging relationship with an investor, and no investor wants to say I'm the let me know when you fixed it investor, and that's perfectly fine. I think you also need to know as an entrepreneur that your investors might not help you, and that's okay, because getting a check from them and having them mention you once in a while in press or in something, that's great, that works. now I have a more honest relationship with a lot of my investors where I'm like, here's where I'm thinking you want to be in our relationship. Is that right for you? I need all this help. Do you want to know? Okay, then here's where you sit, and that's perfectly fine, and I respect you. We have this honesty. I'm going to go figure out these problems, but it also means that you can't bother me when I'm figuring out these problems. And I think like as your company gets bigger, as you make more money, as you go along the path, and you build more trust with them, they kind of let you roll with that. In the beginning, not so much. So you have to like understand that dynamic. But it's different for everyone. I mean, I have entrepreneur friends who love a bunch of their investors, like love, and they're friends with them, and like, you know, it's awesome. And then I have entrepreneur friends that are like, I hate every single one of my investors. And I'm like, oh, because I'm not in that camp at all. So you learn, and you have to try and be as smart as you can, but talk to as many investors as you can. Sorry, entrepreneurs. Talk to as many people that have founded companies as you possibly can before you raise money, and like get the scoop. And because everyone will be honest with you, and then you can kind of suss it out for yourself. But I mean, there are bad people and good people. There are good at their jobs people, bad at their jobs people. Like, this isn't a surprise. It also exists in this community. There are bad entrepreneurs, and a bunch of investors have been burned. So it's the world. What do you think about that?
About good founders, bad founders, good VCs, bad VCs.
Right? Like, no one talks about that as a dynamic. It is a dynamic.
It's definitely a dynamic. For me, I think references is so important.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, someone may say, oh, I'm gonna do all these things for you, I'm so excited by you, but it's like, actions are louder than words. And so I was thinking, okay, let's go and do reference checks and speak to people who currently work with them. Maybe have worked with them before and no longer work with them, and why is that? And like drinking buddies, get references from like their drinking buddies.
Yeah. Well, and you were telling me, I was like, how do you work with your companies? And you were like, well, I send at least 3 candidates they should be hiring per week. I'm obsessed with them. I'm wearing their stuff. I'm talking about their stuff. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's not normal. She was like, what, really? And I'm like, yeah, you know, because you're dog fooding your companies. You do it because you love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's rare.
This question actually kind of goes into that, which is, and you actually have a lot of male VCs on your board, which is interesting, but can you just talk to the audience a little bit about pitching a female-focused consumer business to male VCs, and did they understand your business?
You know, pitching a $60 billion industry that almost everyone uses every few weeks, if not more often, has been challenging. Because when I say $60 billion and there's over 1 million businesses over here, everyone when they go to sleep wakes up and their hair is longer. This is a thing that we all need to deal with. They're still like, wow, that sounds like a niche opportunity. And I find that hilarious. And it's because dudes don't necessarily want to be on a board where we're talking about 75% female business owners, 50% minorities. Like, we're in the South and the Midwest, we're deep in Texas, we're deep in Georgia, we're deep in Illinois. Like, it's not the sexy Silicon Valley unicorn, blah, blah, blah. And so it did turn a lot of people off. I also joke about this, it's actually true though, like 30% of VCs are bald, approximately. And I used to have this joke with my co-founder where like we would walk into a room, and if there was more than one bald person, like we would not be successful. And it got to the point where like I would walk in and like smile and I'd see 2 and I'd go, fuck. And he would go, it's okay, this is a practice run, you know? I'd be like, okay. And it was always true universally. So no, and I think it's lame, and I think the solution is more women partner VCs who...
She has to say that.
No, please, can you clone yourself, sprinkle yourself all over the valley? That'd be great.
Okay guys, we're on to our last question. Thank you everybody for staying. You've captivated everyone's attention. Okay, so looking forward, what is the next step to grow the company even further?
I would like to make more money. We are making a lot of money and I want to make more, so let's do more of the same.
Let's do that. Thank you so much, Melody. Thank you, everyone.